Hello, and welcome to the first episode of the Stone Edge Countertops Podcast. You might be planning a kitchen upgrade, exploring commercial countertop options, or just curious about how it all works. No matter where you're at in the process, today's episode will give you clarity and confidence moving forward. This show is all about helping homeowners and business owners make smarter, more confident decisions when it comes to countertops. And for our first episode, I've got someone really special here with me, Brian from Stone Edge Countertops. He comes from the family behind Stone Age Countertops, but more than that, he plays a key role in running the business and working directly with clients, guiding projects from the first consultation to the final walkthrough. Brian, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's start from the top. What are the top three things homeowners, business owners should really know before starting a kitchen or bathroom countertop project?
Yeah, I always think that the number one is going to be design, right? What are you going to go? What are you looking for? What out of your space? It's always very important because that's the whole reason anyone really starts a remodel is because they need to update their kitchen. So you got to understand what it is you're wanting to do with your space, what kind of feel you want out of it. Otherwise, you're just going to be choosing random selection of assortment of tile and countertops and cabinetry, and there's no direction. And then by the time you put it all together, it could be a big mess. The second thing would be your habits, right? What do you do on a daily basis? Are you a big cooker? Do you use it normal? Do you have lots of kids? Are you just a grandpa that's just live at home, empty nesters? What it is that you're wanting to get out of your kitchen. So that's going to make a huge difference, I think, in what you select, the finishes, all that kind of stuff. And then I think the last thing's always there's all these guidelines and all these designers and Instagram and Pinterest, and there's so much and it can be really overwhelming. Here's what the trends are doing, here's what the designers are doing, here's this and that. And I do think that at the end of the day, you got to remember this is your space. This is where you're going to live. This is where you're going to cook. This is where you're going to be having your family there, and you're showing them a bit of your personality. So you do have to learn how to make it your space that shows who you are, what you like, and pick those things that you do because you're paying for it, right? So I think those are the top three things that I always like to emphasize to anybody trying to get into wanting countertops or remodeling or whatever it is. There's so much out there that's just a lot of chaos, a lot of noise. And I feel like it's important to narrow it down to the for the client to help knock out all that noise and help guide them into what they're going to be the most happy with.
Exactly, totally agree. Good. This was a very good start. My second question is when people start comparing quotes, things can get tricky. When comparing quotes from different countertop companies, what hidden costs or details should homeowners, business owners be aware of before making a decision?
I It's weird because I feel like countertops, they're very interesting spot. Reality is that it's been so competitive. Even my costs have not even gone up that much over the last 10 years. I'm almost charging what I was 10 years ago for some of my stuff. I think even when you have extra costs in there, I think the important thing is always going to be knowing the value your fabricator brings to you, because I try to bring as much value I can to the table, whether it's my knowledge, expertise, me being answering my phone, calling back to you, driving when I'm needed to a location to make sure everything's going right. And I charge accordingly, right? I know I'm not the cheapest guy. I know I'm not the most expensive guy, but some people might look at what I have, what I offer, and say, oh, you have some hidden costs there. But a lot of times I'm bringing enough value to the table to justify those costs. So I think that's really more what it's about is understanding the value your fabricator is bringing to the table on his quotes and saying, asking those questions and then seeing, okay, is this a fabricator I can trust? Has he got skills? Does he know what he's doing? What information can he give me? And if so, a lot of the times those costs that they do put on there, client might end up going, what? He's worth the money. Or he barely communicates, or I have a hard time getting him, or it's very vague, or there's no detail in there at all. In that case, I might be a little wary in saying, well, if the fabricator can't explain very well what the costs are, maybe I'll go somewhere else. And another fabricator may have those same costs, but they're totally justifiable. And then as you're going through the process of picking out a fabricator, and change orders always happen. There's always an update. The cabinets weren't exactly on the plans as they are in real life, so you have to adjust. Just making sure you communicate that with the client, or the client is able to ask you and be comfortable to ask you and say, hey, I know we changed that. Is going to be extra? Is it not going to be extra? We want to add the backsplash. And that way, when you get to the final billing, they don't feel like all of a sudden you're just throwing every little cost at them, that they understand that a lot of this stuff takes a lot more work than they think it does.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. And what about red flags? If someone's out there looking for a fabricator or installer, what are some signs that a company might not be the right fit?
Reviews is a good place to start, looking at the reviews. And I've done this long enough that I can spot some good reviews that give a little detail, some that don't. But I try to find those reviews that give you some insight into the business. I try to, I'd say, communicate with that company. And if they don't answer, we're always busy. But if they don't answer, do they call you back? And if they don't call you back and you're constantly having to chase them even from the beginning, I'd say, hey, you know what? This might not be a good fit. It's like, for me, even if I do miss a call, I try to get back to my clients as soon as possible. I try to answer their texts, whatever way. So I think communication, I think it's real key. And if they don't have that, I think that's a huge red flag.
Yeah, exactly. This can really save people from a bad experience. Let's shift to the materials. Granite versus quartz is a question people always ask.
Yeah.
So, how should the homeowners decide which is better for their kitchen, bathroom, or lifestyle?
Oh, yeah, that's a question I get all the time. And I try to explain it to them as simply as possible, because you can get into the science. And I have gotten into the science of what both materials are. But like quartz, I say quartz is an artificial stone that's made with natural ingredients and artificial ingredients to create a designed stone, versus granite. It's a natural stone that's quarried out of a mountain location. It is processed to create a beautiful natural stone slab. The difference will be is that one has a little bit more maintenance. The other, with granite, you have to maintain your stone. You have to buy a good sealer, seal it once a year. With the quartz, there's a lot of misinformation out there where they say it's so indestructible, it's stain proof. It's not. In this industry, in any construction industry, I have yet to come across a product that is 100% vulnerable to like wear and tear. And quartz is tough. It is, you don't have to seal it, but I always say, you're going to buy anything expensive, follow the basic guidelines. You follow the basic guidelines, and your counter, whether it's granite, whether it's quartz, it's going to last you a long time, cleaning, sealing, all that stuff.
Makes sense. It really depends on what do you expect and how the space is being used. Yes. My next question is, what are some common mistakes homeowners make when picking out a slab, especially for larger spaces like islands?
Yeah, I think a common mistake is quality, especially when they want natural stone. Right now, natural stone, especially quartzite, is very big. A lot of times I think they just, one, they don't know what they're getting into. They just see what everybody else is doing. Oh, court Taj Mahal. Oh my gosh, that's what I want. That's what everybody's doing. But what they don't understand is there's different levels of quality. I've had to return slabs that I started fabricating because they're so bad. And I was like, I can't install this into a client's house. And I've had to call them and say, hey, we got to look for something else. This isn't going to last for a long time. And so I think that the quality of a material, if you're going with the natural stone, is going to be very important. You want to make sure it's something durable. You're going to have people hanging around that 24/7. You want something durable, something high quality. And the other thing is the size too. Nowadays, so many people want like these huge islands, like ridiculously huge. I'm two slabs just for one island. I get it. It's awesome. It's beautiful. It looks so cool. But at the same time, at least to me, it's just so impractical. If it was my own house, I hate cleaning. But some of these islands, I can just tell it's just going to take them 10, 15 minutes just to clean the island. Maybe at that point, they just pay people, somebody else to clean it for them. But I think those are the two things that I just noticed is practicality and just the quality of what people are buying.
What about overhangs? How much is too much before you need support, and what should homeowners know when planning for that?
Yeah, so we always recommend for quartz, because quartz is a little bit more of a uniform material. It's more durable in the sense that it just has a lot more strength. That we usually we'll do about a 14-inch overhang. Anything past that, we do require supports. And then with granite and quartz, anywhere from 10 to 12 inches, or quartzite, I mean. With granite and quartzite, it's about 10 to 12 inches before we want supports. And then a lot of the times, too, what I always tell people is, and supports can also be the weight of the material. A lot of times people want like 16, 18-inch overhang, and they just want little corbel brackets that attach to the cabinetry. But I always remember telling them, like, the other side that people don't talk about is that you have all this weight hanging off, and you have a little bit of weight as well on your cabinetry. I'm like, that whole thing can tip over on you. I know some of these islands are floating. I've seen a lot of these cabinets, they're just floating islands, and I'm like, you get your countertop, you have a big overhang, even if you have some supports, but they're only attached to the cabinet. Imagine getting three, four dudes hanging on one side, that whole cabinet and that whole countertop can come tipping over. That could be a serious injury. And then once you get past that 14, you look at 16. I've got people that want 18. I've had even people do 20-inch overhangs, and that's why I tell them, like, oh, that's when you almost need like supports, you need posts, you need stringers run across between the posts, all that kind of stuff. Not just to support the material itself, but to give the whole countertop a sturdy base that's not going to fall over on you.
Oh, so there's definitely a balance between design freedom and safety there. When it comes to sealing,
Yeah.
sealing is one of those maintenance things people hear about, but don't always take seriously or don't understand fully. So, how often does granite really need to be sealed, and what happens if someone just skips it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Granite needs to be sealed on average about once a year, is what we recommend. However, you just like anything else, right? Like you buy a car, sometimes you start to notice little quirks in your car that you have to maintain a little bit more. And then that's how it is, right? I explained to them, here's what to look for. You see that water soaking in a little bit more than usual. It wouldn't hurt to do two ceilings a year, right? Every 6 months. And there's some materials that I've done a lot of work on that they're like a sponge, and you have to seal it like once every 3 months, even. And then there's stuff out there that people never seal, and it looks fantastic after 5 or 6 years. So it's really challenging. I think it's a little bit by the stone. I think it's a little bit up to the fabricator as they're fabricating a kitchen to just make a little side note and seeing how that stone's behaving, and then letting that client know, hey, we notice this material likes to absorb a little water or doesn't. I think what people can expect if they don't seal their countertops is, one, that the water stains, that water is going to really soak and grab onto that material. You're going to lose that luster in your stone. And you're going to it's like you're probably going to get a little bit of that bacteria development in the pores of your stone. And at some point, it's like you have to almost do a whole reface and disinfect the counter material and all sorts of stuff. I've seen it both. And unfortunately, I don't think there's like a straight, this fits all situations. And you think it's a little bit based on your situation.
Okay, got it. So it depends on many factors. Now let's walk through your process. From the first quote to final installation, what should homeowners expect when working with Stone Edge countertops?
Yeah, this is something that I've been working on over the last couple of years. A long time ago, I was listening to someone talk explaining that every company should have a tactical advantage, right? Like something that no one else can offer. You look at Apple products, they definitely have this uniqueness about them. You look at certain car manufacturers and they offer specific things that no one else can offer. That's hard in the construction business because there's so many fabricators. So I've been trying to figure out what that advantage for us is, and really kind of to relate it to where you're asking what should people expect. Well, just good service. I like to get to know my clients. I like to understand their lifestyle a little bit. I like to understand what that is that they're looking for so I can help guide them to creating a beautiful space. I've also gone out and done a lot of research on my own, looking into what's the stones we're actually putting into people's homes. That way, when they ask me questions, I can give them a confident answer that says, hey, this is what this is. I've even looked into the science of all this kind of stuff. So I try to offer them not just a countertop experience that, oh, we just go in there and fabricate. I offer them expertise. I consider myself to be an expert. I don't know everything, but I'm willing to consult my dad, who's been in this business for almost 30 years, other shops, other friends that I have in this business, contractors, all that kind of stuff. I'm willing to collaborate and reach out and obtain as much knowledge as possible. That way, the client knows that they're going to get a great product. That's what we offer them from start to finish. I treat every job, whether it's a small vanity or a kitchen, with importance. And so I have people, no, I'll get them a quote. Usually we refine that quote. We ask that people do a good job at communicating. There's always a lot of times where we send out a quote, we end up being more expensive, but they don't reach out and say, hey, that's a little too much. Is there any other options we may have? I'm willing to try to find those options. Once we settle on a price, our usual lead time is about 2 weeks. Once we get a deposit, templates, and a client sync to do the install. And then once we're installing, that's when we get final payment on the job. But I always tell everybody, hey, we're here. We're always grateful for people that choose to go with us, and they're always going to have somebody to rely on. I have clients that say, hey, I chipped my counters a year or two later. And I say, hey, don't worry about it. Well, we're not going to charge you. We're going to come out and do a little chip repair for you. Because that's the service we want to provide. That's what we try to do. We don't nickel and dime our clients over the smallest things.
Oh, that's so beautiful. That's so nice. And having a clear step by step makes the process feel way less overwhelming. And my next question is about seams. Seams
Yeah.
are a big concern for people who want that clean, polished look. This is very important for me too. So, what do you do to make seams almost invisible?
We do a lot of prep work in the shop. That's really big. Also, we try to get those best matching. I use software where I try to get pictures of the slabs, do a layout first and see where those seams are going to have to land and see how best we can match those seams. If there's going to be, especially if it's natural stone. I think the biggest part too is, again, it's like communication. I have to tell my clients, hey, guys, like this stone's got a lot of movement. You're not going to get perfect matching with these veins. They change in size, color. And so I explained to them up front, we do a good job, right? We spend a lot of time prepping those seams, making sure they're really nice and tight here at the shop. We'll put everything together, we'll do everything a final check. And then when we're there, we use the right tooling. That's always important, is make sure you get those right tools. I've personally take pride in my seams. To be honest, I feel like I have the best seams here in the shop. I don't do as much of the installing as I used to, but I do know my seams kick butt. And I've told these guys and I've even shown them exactly how I want these seams to look. And that's what we strive for, right? And if they fall short, then, and we got to fix it, we got to do what we got to do to make the client happy. That's always going to be number one priority, is making sure that even if we make a mistake, that we tell the client, hey, mistakes happen, we'll fix it. You're going to be happy in the end. And they always are. They always are happy in the end. They trust us to figure it out for them.
Perfect, so nice. That was a good one. And Stone Edge is known for quick turnarounds without cutting corners. So, how do you manage that balance between speed and quality?
Constant reminding and checking in. I personally, my dad, we personally will take the time to come to the shop and help keep guiding the process along, right? Making sure that these things are getting checked. Our shop manager's here to make sure that they're also checking for these things. If we notice a thing or two slip by, okay, no problem, we'll get it fixed. But as soon as it starts to show a pattern, that's when we start to intervene and we will show up and we'll say, hey guys, that first one, okay, that's a whoopsie, no problem. Nobody's perfect. It's going to happen. Second, third time, that's when we start going, okay, something's starting to happen. Let's check in and see what's going on. And then we'll take the time to remind the guys and show them how we would like these things done again. It is a challenge. And what we always ask is people to be a little patient with us because nowadays, with Instagram and all the stuff and Pinterest and designers and construction the way it is, there's a lot of custom stuff. And sometimes you're focused on a whole set of details here and one might slip on through that you didn't think about. That's just maybe a new thing. And so we always ask, even though we try to keep a good quick turnaround time, maintaining quality. On occasion, we do have a conversation with a client that also says, hey, and it's not like we're asking them to extend lead time by another week or so, but we usually say, hey, give us a couple of extra days to make sure we maintain that look that you want and work these little details out. So then, and a lot of times they're pretty happy about that. They're like, yeah, that's fine. No worries. They want it to look good. So they don't mind.
Perfect. My next question is, even if homeowners don't plan to sell anytime soon, is investing in premium countertops still something that pays off in the long run for their lifestyle or the home's overall value?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the thing that I know, and from having conversations with real estate agents and people that are in that business, they always tell me, look, at the end of the day, as long as you can put updated kitchen or quartz countertops or quartz, whatever it is, that will sell. Now, depending on how much you want to spend, there will be a level of money that you just won't get your return from. Maybe if you pick a more beautiful stone, that home might sell quicker. Maybe someone is willing to pay that little bit of extra because that kitchen's the right look that they have or that they want already. But that's a little bit of a gamble, I think, that you're hoping for that right person to come along, which might take a lot longer for your house to sell. So I generally will say, hey, it's okay to upgrade just a little bit from the really cheap countertop material. But once you get one grade above, that's when you really have to ask yourself, how long are we going to be here after we do this? Are they going to be there another 5 to 10 years? And if that's the case, I say enjoy the space you got. So yeah, that's fine, and spend a little extra money, buy those beautiful countertops. Like I said, you're going to enjoy them for at least the next 5, 10 years. And if not, then if they're selling right away, then I usually just hear them, hey, just try to keep things simple. Don't go too crazy because you're not going to see that return on investment. But I ultimately, again, we just leave it up to the client.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great point, and I totally agree with that. It's about enjoying your space every day. For those thinking about resale, how much of a value boost can a new countertop really provide, and what kind of return on investment have your clients seen?
Oh, that's a good question. Honestly, I don't really have a real strong answer to that one, just because in our area, from what we've seen, it definitely shows. Like when people update their kitchens, they sell those homes quick. They definitely get a little bit more bang for their buck, and they're getting a much nicer resale value. The hard thing about the clients that we work with is we just work in such a variety of areas. We have home flippers that are just flipping homes and they want as inexpensive as possible. And they have people that have been in a home for 10 years and they're just looking to upgrade. And so it's hard to know, especially in Utah. There's been such a high increase in home values. And so a lot of the times I'm trying to think, I want to say they can get like around 10 to 15% with an updated kitchen versus a non-updated kitchen. But yeah, that's a good question. And that one might be one that I need to look into investigate more. I said there's a skew right now from all the new construction. So it's like really weird because a lot of people in Utah right now, most homes are selling through families. And so they're trying to get good deals with families. And so anything that's being sold really more of an open market, those homes have actually slowed down. But new construction is on the rise. It's really interesting. There's a whole little bit of a interesting economical situation here in Utah going on.
Thank you so much. Here comes my last question. Budgets can get tight during home projects. What are some ways homeowners can still get a beautiful result without overspending?
That's a good one. That's one I'd actually really like to get into because I usually will send out a quote and that gives people a little bit of a sticker shock. But then as I talk them through, I always explain to them, here's the thing. Like you got a big whole island. That's what people congregate around the most. So I usually tell them, why don't we just spend most of the money on your island and then do something that's neutral, something that's inexpensive for the rest of the house, whether it's bathrooms, whether it's this. Maybe they want to spruce up at least their master bathroom. But at the end of the day, it's like you got to pick the right things where you really want to spend your money because it always happens. They get to me by the time they get to me, and I'm always usually one of the last guys. They've bought their cabinets, they've have their appliance package that they've spent $30,000 on. They have flooring that they spend another $20,000 on. And then I come in with a $9,000 quote and they're like, oh, we've already blown our budget. We want to be at $6,000 or something. And I'm like, here's the thing, maybe we can't get down to six. But if we just focus on your island, do a beautiful island countertop, do something that complements but isn't too expensive, something a little more neutral for your perimeter, that might be the way to go. Oh, they might say, oh, I really want a thick edge. I want that mitered edge. So that's expensive. And I say the same thing again. I say, hey, let's just do it on your island. Again, that's where everybody's going to be sitting on there. That's where they're all checking it out. They're checking out the counter. They're noticing it's your centerpiece. You got appliances, you got dishes, you got all sorts of stuff on your other counters. And so a lot of times that just blends in a little bit in the background. And so I always say that's always a good way to go is just look at those areas that you find the most critical and say, here's where we can really help this pop. And like I said, we might not be able to get to that $6,000 price point, but instead of being at 8, we might be more like 7, right in the middle. And that's where I really try to help those clients figure that out. It makes a difference. And then a lot of times they just end up being really happy because they love their island and they save some money.
Brian, this was super helpful. I've enjoyed every second of it. Thank you so much breaking everything down and making it easy to understand for us. Appreciate your genuine answers, by the way. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to add or share with our listeners?
The only thing that tell people is just don't be afraid to have a genuine, open conversation with any contractor that you're explaining to them what it is you want. If something's a little bit out of your price point, there's a way to approach that, right? There's always a way to approach any sort of problem, issue, concern in a professional manner where both parties can come to an agreement. And as long as everybody can be a little bit flexible, I think that's where people will find the best way of working with anyone in the trades. That's all. That's really the hardest times I have is when clients just don't give me enough information to know what they want. And so then I have to second guess, or if they're not available, if I have a hard time communicating with them and we're ready to go, and all of a sudden they're always asking me for all these little details the very last second, right? And at that point, it can get more expensive. It can get more challenging. So there's always a way to communicate with us. I'm trying to do my best to change. This kind of, I feel like we're heading into the second gen, maybe even third generation now of construction workers that are taking over their family's business. And I'm trying to communicate across the board with not just my clients, but with people in my trades and all the other trades so I can help better understand how I can be of service to my clients. So I can also help them navigate. I can't tell you how many times I've navigated a situation with a tradesman that was a cabinet guy or an electrician or this. simply because I've talked to electricians in the past and I know how they think a little bit better. So that's always a good way to go about it. And I'm hoping that will change as this third gen, second gen of construction workers enters the field and we start taking over these businesses. So I'm excited for the future. It's gonna be good.
That's so nice. Thanks again, Brian. And thank you to everyone who tuned in to our first episode of the Stone Edge Countertops podcast. If you found this helpful, feel free to share with a friend, leave a comment, or send in any questions you'd like us to cover next time. We've got plenty more to come, and we are excited to keep helping you create beautiful, functional spaces. Take care and see you next time.